collection of reactions to. No NFL QB has been sacked more in that span.
He was sacked a lot during his time with Seahawks too. He held the ball long and made a lot of big plays too.
Yeah, he's doing the same thing here. You give him 4 seconds and he'll launch it. He just doesn't have the mobility that got him out of rough situations in the past.
He's doing better with Peyton to dump it off rather than play hero ball during some games to avoid negative plays when the RB is open. He's avoided at least 15 sacks by doing this, and this is why he should have never been in a position where he has more pull than the head coach.
Helps to have 2.5 good pass catchers at RB.
We had a couple stretches like that in Seattle too. Problem is he always backsides.
He was always running into pressure on the Seahawks as well. I can't tell you how many times he ran right into an edge rusher when he had his eyes downfield.
During his time in Seattle, he constantly ranked among the top 3 QBs in football with QB assigned fault sacks. Some QBs make their offensive lines look a lot better than they are. Wilson is the direct opposite of that.
He did it a few times last night too. Looking downfield, he steps sideways or backwards outside his protection instead of forward, and lands right in the arms of a rusher.
There was a play last night with 3 rushers, a massive hole to just sit in, but Russell decided to run out of the pocket and cause a holding.
God, that shit used to drive me crazy. At one point it was so effective, but it goes down in efficacy every year.
Wouldn't it be mostly the second half of the year? He would start out hot. The MVP talk would start. Then he'd fall off hard towards the second half of the year.
Yep, he'd start out gunslinging and running all over the place. By week 7 or 8 his play style would catch up to him and he would be nursing injuries trying to be a conservative pocket QB, and that's when he starts to look mediocre.
Quite the opposite. He used to start bad then get better as the year went on, but it flipped in 2020 for some reason.
It's the kind of thing that works better with the physical ability of a 24-year-old than a 35-year-old.
I remember Dwayne Brown throwing his hands up in disgust at least once per game with Russ taking an unnecessary sack.
Hell, there was a play where the Pats brought 6 and the line picked it up and gave a good pocket, but Wilson immediately panicked and ran his way right into a sack after scrambling by himself in the pocket for like a good 2 seconds. He does not trust his linemen whatsoever to give him time.
Has nothing to do with trust. Dude isn't efficient at all. So he's hoping for a giant broken play. It's the worst style of quarterbacking.
Not against the Niners. We could never catch that little bastard.
He was literally the greased up deaf guy against you guys. Good times.
I vividly remember one play in the NFC CG where I think he legit ran around for 10 to 13 seconds back and forth across the field before launching it to Baldwin.
Yup, his play has always relied on holding the ball too long, avoiding pressure, and making the big scramble play downfield. His Seahawks lines always got blamed for being bad, but now that he's slowing down and his ability to avoid pressure is declining, it's becoming more and more apparent that the bad O-lines have kinda been his fault all along.
He's been sacked 527 times, 43 away from the all-time leader Tarkenton. Another full season as a starter and he probably gets the record. The only active players who are close to him, Rodgers, 4 ahead, and Stafford, 57 behind, are significantly older than him.
He does it to himself. Last night on 3rd and 8 the defense blitzed from the lot and it was picked up perfectly. All he had to do was keep his eyes downfield and hit a deep crosser. Instead he panicked after 1 second and ran defenders off his blockers, right into a sack.
Which is always what he's done, it's just that he's slower now.
The double clutch and dropping his eyes really kills him.
Russ also needs to be aware of the dump off. Jaleel, Javonte, and Perrine were all wide open on lots of dump offs watching Russ just take that sack.
Seattle's O-line was never the best, I was never a fan of it. These last couple years have made me rethink my opinion of most of the guys on our line for the last decade.
I think for a couple of seasons there your line was bottom tier. It got better, but Russ had already developed his tendency to drift out of the pocket or hold the ball till a downfield option opens up.
Yeah, the 15 to 17 lines were awful. Like each year multiple starters and never made another roster. But 18 to 21 were pretty average Oleans, but their reputation from the previous 3 years and Russ's play style really shaped the perception.
Let's not do revisionist history. Some of those lines were genuinely horrible.
Oh, they were absolutely atrocious. I meant more that Russ wasn't giving them any help during that time by trying to play hero ball all the time.
In Russ' rookie season, Russell Okung and Max Unger were pro bowlers. Unger was first-team All-Pro. James Carpenter was a good player as well, and we had a great blocking tight end in Zach Miller. The line obviously got worse over the years, in part due to having to pay Russ, but I think people forget that his first 3 seasons, including both Super Bowl appearances, the line wasn't bad. Our run game wasn't purely built by Marshawn, though of course he helped.